welcome to the second episode of the HSRC Connect. Now, today we're going to talk about an interesting topic, and that is AI. AI, something that we might be fearful of, or something that we have quite a lot of, we see quite a lot of opportunities in. Today's panel is on the latter part, talking about the opportunities of AI. I'm going to ask our panel to introduce themselves, just tell us a little about what you do and your name, and then we're going to get into our conversation today. So good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll start with you. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I am Brian. I run a platform called Vulega. This is focused on the informal space, working with informal businesses to try and make them sustainable. We use technology to try and get informal businesses to get their stock, but not only get their stock, we use the buying and payment history to then create credit profiles for them and then extend credit to them. Okay. We also collect a lot of data regarding what happens within the informal space in the course of doing our business.
Great. I can't wait to hear more a little bit about that.
Thanks, Candice. Yes, Krish Chetty here, research manager here at the HSRC. I do quite a bit of research into artificial intelligence, and we're running a few other projects in that space, and I'm keen to talk about it.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hi, Candice. I'm the head of projects for an organization called Philippi Village.
Yes.
It's in the heart of in Cape Town, and basically we have got a space there that allows informal traders, local entrepreneurs to have a safe space for them to be able to do their business in close proximity with their target as well as the community. So we've got 110 shipping containers. We also have got 31 office spaces that are available for rent, so anyone can come into our space, rent it out, and then be able to do their business.
Wow. So what I'm hearing here is a whole lot of positives, which speaks to the concerns that we were briefly discussing earlier that I've had. So I think just as a starting point, let's talk about what is AI? What is it?
So I think the best way to think about it is describing it as a digital brain. It's a program that sits on a computer, but unlike other programming software which exists, you usually spell out exactly how the program should work. Okay. So you would write this code and you would say, do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that's how you fulfill the task. With AI, it has this digital brain, and you say, your goal, your mission is to perform X.
Right.
And then this machine goes out and it starts to connect the dots, and it goes from this point of not knowing anything, but it sees the end result, and then it joins those dots and then produces this output. And so you're finding it everywhere these days. Yeah. It's just... recently, we're hearing more about it with ChatGPT and these other tools, but every tech provider has been using it for the past few years. It's just now more accessible to us.
Yeah. And why do you think it is something for us to talk about now? Why has it become such a big topic now?
Yeah.
If it has been accessible for so long, or has been around for so long, why is there such a boom around it now?
I think it really caught our attention last year in December. There was this big release came out from OpenAI, the first release of ChatGPT, and I started using it just drawing up poems. So I would say, well, I can create this poem, and I had a little 4-month-old at home at the time, and I would generate this poem and I would read it to her, and I said, that's cool. Oh. And months later, you started seeing people are generating songs, and there's music, and there's this whole variety. And then suddenly you start to see it can do all these complex things. Right. You take your own report and you can condense it, analyze it, identify the most important things. And I think it's really gotten to this point where we can see value for it in all the different work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you've got all these big headlines that have been coming out in the course of the year. So we're seeing it from a practical perspective of how it might add value to us. But then you hear this narrative. And I've learned this word recently called killerism.
Yes.
I've heard this in this last week. The CEO of Stability AI coined it. And he said there's this narrative that AI is going to kill us all. And it seems to dominate the headlines.
Yes.
Right? Everywhere you go, every article you read, AI is going to change this, it's going to... And we don't hear the positives. We don't hear how it could be actually useful to us in our day-to-day. And so then that dominates the news headlines. That dominates the narrative, that dominates our understanding of what AI is.
Yes.
And so fear then becomes your first response.
Yeah.
And everywhere that we've been, the response has been, whoa, 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 AI is not for us.
Yes.
It's those, it's that big corporate thing. I don't see how it's going to fit. I don't want to have anything to do with something that's going to kill all of us. And so there's this immediate response that
It's not
we
good.
shouldn't be working with this. But there's all this transformative upside that I've come across in my research from the past year, which I think adds value. And then that's what brings us to the different organizations to share that message, to say, here are the opportunities. So that's what took us to Philippi Village, and that's what's got us connected more with Vuleka recently, about how AI could be very transformative in our space.
So talk to us about that. Talk to us about you've been involved in a program of work around AI. So tell us a little bit about that program of work.
Yeah, it's been exciting. So when I first came across AI back in December last year, almost a year now, and I was doing these poems, and then it struck me that this is really doing some complex reasoning, and that there's many use cases for it. And then my first thought was about us here in the HSRC. We're producing tons and tons of content, and it goes back decades, and it's all sitting on our servers. And the question is, how many people have actually gone through that work, understood it? So how do we make our own research more engaging? So that was my first thing. I said, if you have these chatbots, maybe the chatbot needs to be informed by HSRC work. And I had this picture, what if a news anchor could punch in a question into an HSRC chatbot and say, HSRC's position on housing is A, B, and C. And so we said, okay, let's do some development work inside. And so we recruited a junior developer fresh out of campus, and we gave him this job. We said, we want to build our own HSRC chatbot, and we want to inform it with HSRC research. So that was the first thing that we did. And so we're making good progress there, and we hope to have an announcement soon that we could release that. AI moves fast, so we are moving quick here. And it's amazing what you can do, and we've been learning in that. At the same time, we've been doing research about the social applications of AI. And so for the past 9 years, I've been working at the HSRC, and I'm getting a sense about where are the issues here at home? What does inequality mean for us? What's the state of our schools? How do we bridge those gaps that we find? And so we've been trying to think about how can we now slot in an AI service that can start to solve these problems. And so that's a big component of our work on research. And then we started off what we call the AI Skills Development Roadshow. And so this is an exciting project. With one of our projects, it took us to Diani Beach of all places, and this is where it started. So in Diani Beach, we met with about 120 master's graduates from across the continent. And we came together, and I gave a talk about what AI can do for you. And so I started off with a song, and I showed them, here's Freddie Mercury singing a song from Adele. Who's missed Freddie Mercury? And I mean, it's amazing. And then it snaps you out of it when you start thinking, no, it's not all about this doomerist, killerism sort narrative. There's actually some social applications here. And so we show them, this is how you could generate or manage your social media. This is how you could create a website. And then we end up with a business plan. We say, break into groups, talk about your business ideas, and then using this prompt we've designed, put together a business plan, but you have 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
And so, but we put the time on there to
just keep it like you have 15 minutes.
But to prove a point as well. And so the first time we did it in Diani Beach, the response was, oh my word, I can't do this, 15 minutes is too short. But we said, capture your ideas that are in your group, capture your strengths that are in you, talk about the challenges that you've experienced. And so that goes into the prompt. And then we got to the 14-minute mark, silence in the room, and then this applause breaks out. And I go stick my ear in there to find out what happened. ChatGPT said, we're going to generate $1 million in 3 years.
Oh my God.
And so the excitement hit at that point. And then they said, wait, but this is our words coming out, and it means the idea has some merit. And so there was this buy-in that came in. And then suddenly the whole room erupts, and everybody starts clapping. And they start to see it. And so you see this light bulb go off. And then we said, wow, okay, we're doing this in Diani Beach, very far away from us.
Right.
Let's bring it home. And so that then brings us to Philippi Village and other institutions where we've then tried to take that message, show these opportunities that are there, and have that light bulb moment.
And so when you talk about AI in the roadshow and the work that you're doing there, are there particular forms? I don't know if I'm saying this correctly or describing this correctly, so please correct me. AI is not one thing, right? Or it doesn't exist in one way.
No, it depends on who's using it.
Okay.
And so you give it a mission, basically. Okay. So chatbot is like ChatGPT. It's a general purpose tool. And so you tell it, this is what I need to do, and it can use it. But then you can apply this in different contexts.
Okay.
And so you've just got to think about what it is, that problem that you're trying to solve. So
Right.
people are using it to build websites. You have another website called character.ai, which has been quite popular, where you can go to it and there's an interviewer bot that's been created. So you could see a job advert that's online, copy and paste this thing from Career Junction, put it in there and run a mock interview with an AI. So that starts to prepare you then for jobs, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
And so the response that we actually had in these sessions was, these tools are amazing and it's useful, and it speaks to problems that we have.
And I think what's really great about this is that we often think of AI or technology as this person sitting in a room with laptops and screens and maybe a robot or two, creating something that is about, to your point, taking over the world. Right? We have this very particular way of thinking of AI. And what the work that we're talking about today is actually bridging that gap between the informal sector, or what I think is us as people who are not tech savvy, and bringing the technology, the applications to the communities. And then in that way speaking back to that killerism, to what you mentioned earlier. And I think that is quite exciting, to think about to rather think about how we can use AI and not how AI will use us. Although we will probably never can. But
Let's put us in the dress.
it's just be real about that. But I think that's really exciting, that we can do that. And so you've recognized the potential of that as well. And you've decided to bring the roadshow to Philippi. Tell us about why. Why did you think it was important for that to happen?
I think number one, definitely, the mission and the values definitely aligned. So, our space is in the heart of the Philippi township, right? And we are constantly looking for ways in how we can sort of close that spatial divide that historically, is created in the geographic ways that towns are situated. So we are constantly looking for ways in terms of how do we empower these amazing women and men and young people that create an entrepreneur idea out of passion, and they simply just drive it from passion. I'll give an example of what I mean when I say that if someone has got an idea to have a car wash, for example, and they're like, listen, Sis Ange, I'm called Sis Ange, Sis Ange, we can wash all the cars here that are parked here, and we charge this amount of money, when can I start? And I'm like, okay, listen, please do come back, and then we're going to have a conversation. When you see that young man come, they're going to come with their bucket, with all the different equipment that they need, the soaps and the vacuums and the extension cords and all that, and they're like, here, I'm here to work. I'm like, wait a minute. But we didn't do a quotation. We have not gone through our, our system in terms of, okay, we need to vet you, we need to get 3 quotations and so forth and so forth. So by bringing such tools to help these young people, but also to help these local traders to be able to create a sustainable idea that is not just about that, I'm putting this idea because I need the money to put food on the table, but how can I sort of create a model that is going to sustain me and the next generation? So that was the understanding from our side, to bring that to Philippi Village, and the reception was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. I've recently spoken about how sometimes we have collaborators and partners that want to expose the businesses that operate from Philippi Village to pitching. And so, after the roadshow came to Philippi Village, there's this particular gentleman. He has a construction and security company, and we're like, okay, fine, I'm going to choose you. Are you available on this date to come and speak to some international students? They were MBA students, and he was like, I've never actually pitched before. I don't even have a presentation.
Right.
How do I even go about it? And he was in the workshop and he's like, okay, I think I know what to do. Give me a second and then please let me know if I'm on the right track.
Really?
And then he left for an hour, he came back with the presentation. And I was like, this is perfect, you know. And he was like, for the first time, I can clearly say, this is my mission. Because he knew how to prompt an AI to help him think about that. For the first time, he's like, actually, I've not even been thinking about how I'm managing the finances of my business because of an AI. So I think it's so powerful to see how a tool can be used to then change the life of a business owner, but then at the same time, you watch them sort of sustainably, you know, create, you know, their business, you know, and that also just does a ripple effect because through that, it then goes into the community, and that's how.
Yes.
That's how it's so powerful.
And I think what I'm hearing from you is also that it's like AI standing in the gap. If it wasn't there, it might have taken longer for those skills to develop. And because it would have been a one-on-one session, or it would have been a group session, or it would have been come on Saturday, and I'm going to show you how. But now at least you have something that is accessible to you now, and you could then work with that in order to create what it is that you need to create for that moment.
100%.
And I think that is brilliant to be able to do that. And in terms of, so the examples, like we said earlier, we're talking about the informal sector. And I'm wondering about just your thoughts around how else does AI stand in the gap within the informal sector for, you know, within informal entrepreneurship? Do you have anything for any of you to just kind of add to that around how it fulfills that gap?
I think, okay, you can go first, Barry. Go ahead.
So I think the one thing that's missing within the informal space is the data around it.
Okay.
It's the data around see-through of how what actually happens within the space. It's information around informal business owners actually also understanding or knowing how to move from being survivalist type businesses to actually having thriving businesses. So just as Angela and Krish have said, you can prompt AI to actually learn versus you not learning and going out there and just doing the business for the sake of doing the business. So with AI coming in as something that fills in the gap, it's easier for a business that is within the informal sector to come in and then learn about how to actually build the sustainable business themselves. You know, it can now ask questions. It can go to the point where someone can ask questions where they wouldn't ordinarily have been comfortable to ask around other people in a session. They can now ask either through a ChatGPT or some type of chat and get the answers themselves. Things around pricing, things around, you know, the type of products that you sell within your informal like shop or space. What sells in my area is not going to be the same thing that sells in the next person's area. But just because I've seen what sells in your area, I might go and buy that. But now AI can teach me to say, in your area, this is what we found actually sells. So that's what you can go and buy and sell.
Yeah. I mean, it for me, when I hear this, it sounds like you've got a personal assistant that is helping you because you can you're running the business. And you have someone to consult with, to ask questions that you might not want to ask outside. Like you don't want to be telling everyone your business. Like my business is not doing well, I don't know why, you don't want to tell people. So you could ask AI around the information and to gather that information for you while you are figuring out what's happening. So that sounds quite positive. And so tell us about you've been doing some work also around technology within the informal sector. Tell us about that, the work that you've been doing.
So we've created a platform, like I've said, that works with informal businesses. It's a platform that started out to gather or use the power of bulk buying to get informal business owners to get stock delivered. So we undertake the whole process of taking an order, bulk buying, the warehousing, and the last mile delivery. And in doing this, we use technology for that, but we merge offline and online because we understand that we know in the space that we work in, we're not just going to move everyone from move from your manual process and come and do things now digitally. So we use both type platforms. Now, we also then use the the buying and payment history of these informal business owners to build out credit profiles.
Okay.
And after building out these credit profiles, we then extend credit to these informal business owners because usually they would not have been able to get credit previously. And what we have then seen with the potential for AI in the space is that we can actually use AI to build out those profiles for it to be more predictable for these informal business owners. It actually makes it easier for our business, but not only for our business, for the guys that we service, and in collecting all of this data, because the one big thing that AI thrives from is the information that you actually feed it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I heard you say, and this is also maybe my ignorance a little bit. So I've heard you talk about technology.
Yeah.
And then you talk about AI. What's the difference? I know there's a difference, but I'm trying to also just, for other people, very few of us that are there that don't understand the difference. Just so you have technology and you have AI, right? And and before we spoke a little bit about this,
Yeah.
that you have an app.
Yes.
And you could say a little bit about the app as well. But so what's the difference between having technology or using technology and then using AI? Or is it the same?
So
Anyone, I mean, I'm just asking you. But I mean, it's just, I'm trying to just,
I've worked with Brian in the past, and I got a decent, I shouldn't say I've got a decent understanding. Your business is evolving so fast that COVID has come through and things have changed. But we spoke back in 2019, and we did some research into the impact that Vuleka is having in townships like Alex. And so Brian has got this app, and he's allowing the spaza shop owners to sign on to that app and then market their wares on the Vuleka app. And so you can then, if you're walking through the community, you can find a spaza shop that's close by, and you can then say, okay, I want to buy this from there, and then it will point you to that, and you can then figure out. Okay, and so this is an app that was built even before all this big news about AI.
Right. So I mean, I find it quite fascinating. So basically, if I come into the community and I'm looking for, I'm not going to say the person who popped into my it's early, I'm correct. So if I am looking for chips,
yes,
I'll just say it, and this app kind of has everything listed in of the different spaza shops.
yes,
And it will tell me where I can find what I'm looking for.
yes. So you as the customer would have to, so it works in three ways.
Okay.
There is us, there is the spaza shop owner or the merchant, then there is you as the consumer.
Okay.
So when you as the consumer log in, you are able to see the shops that are around you. You are then able to see what it is that they've got or they sell.
Okay.
When the shop owner logs in, they are able to buy products in bulk and get them delivered to their shop. Right. And then
different layers.
Yes, there's different layers on it. So you as the consumer, when you log in, you're not able to see what the shop owner is buying, but you're able to see the shops around you and what it is that they've got available.
Okay. And is this app available? I mean, it sounds quite great for, if you want to.
Brian is the Alibaba of South
Okay, you are. What did you say earlier? You are my Angie and you are Alibaba.
Yeah, so the app is available. It's on iOS and Android. We actually are also launching a WhatsApp version or store for it, because we've also seen that most of our customers are actually on WhatsApp, and it's easier for them to use WhatsApp versus using the actual apps that you download.
And I would assume that for you said the consumer, right? So I would be the consumer. It would be such a lovely app to have, especially you coming home after work and you're trying to figure out when am I going to buy what.
Yeah.
And I don't have the time with my kids to be stopping at 5 different places. I actually just want to know where to get those things.
Yes.
I think that is brilliant. Especially in communities where there are a lot of spaza shops, right? And you don't know which way to go. So that's great. And so how do you foresee AI coming into this? I think when earlier you spoke, you said you have developed this app or your relationships based also about what you know of the community, right? Which almost feels like you're standing in the place of AI. AI does that too, right?
Yeah.
So it collects information. So how would you feel about, or how do you think AI is going to kind of amplify that?
So AI doesn't necessarily collect, but is fed the information.
Okay.
So what it would make it easier for us to do is it would make it easier for us to get all of this information that we've got from all of the different places and make it available, like readily, for people that want to use it. So if you use the example of like a chat, for us, it's easier now for us to predict a credit score for a shop owner,
Right.
and know that the shop owner has bought from us for this long. And in using AI, because we fed it the information, it's easier for us to then have a profile of this shop owner. It's
Right.
easier for us to then extend credit, but not only from us, from everyone else, because these are people that usually would not have gotten the credit from any other lender, right?
Right.
The banks are not going to give it to them because they don't have a see-through on the data that's happening there. And you find a lot of brilliant businesses that are making so much money, but it's just not formalized in a way. So now with AI and with all this data that we feed in there, it's easier for us to scale up the business, to get more entrepreneurs or small businesses or informal businesses onto this, and actually merge again the offline with the online.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, in the formal sector, or at least in the informal sector, it's almost a black box for the banks, and so they don't know what's going on. And Brian has this valuable data through the work that he's doing that talks about trends, patterns that are happening. You can go street by street to say, this is what sells here, this is what doesn't sell here. So when the community contacts him and say, what's the best choice for me in my business? Brian can say, based on the patterns that we're seeing here, you should concentrate on this. That's your best shot. And that's been generated, and it's taking community data and it's feeding it into the model, and then it's generating these sorts of insights, which is so powerful.
That is very powerful, and I wonder, I should have asked this earlier, but where did this start for you? Because it's an innovative way of thinking about the communities, and it's not just about, I mean, at least when I hear you speak and what you convey now, also there's two layers of power here. Power in terms of what you are producing. So there's the information that's being generated, but there's also working in the community and giving back to the community and supporting the community through this information. So where did this start for you to do this kind of work?
So initially, and sometimes they say you connect the dots going forward. My father, who's late, actually ran a couple of informal businesses. But what happened is those businesses did not essentially survive.
Okay.
And I didn't know why. And it's because there's a lack of a lot of this data that, to make a business survive. There's a lack of knowing and understanding that this is what you need to concentrate on in order to make a business survive. And this is where I think it came from. It came when we had an opportunity to say, but we're seeing a lot of those shops are closing down. You come here today, there's a shop here, tomorrow there's in the shop there. Then the high levels of unemployment. The easiest way to actually get out of poverty in a way is to just start something and then sell from there. So why not make it easier for everyone else just to actually start off their businesses and be able to sell without the long, tedious process of, going out there and trying to look for a business. It's the easiest thing. You know that people are going to want to get chips and want to get cool drinks. And it's easier to just know that, okay, if I can provide this service to people, it's easy for them to get it.
Right. And just remind me, you said you're working in which communities is it?
We're currently in Gauteng only. We're working in Alex, we're working in Soweto, Tembisa, and we've moved into the Vaal areas. We haven't moved out of Gauteng at the moment.
Okay, great. And I wonder, in your
Definitely come to Philippines.
let me just connect the dots.
Yeah.
I wonder about how you would feel. I mean, any responses to that around how that might work within your space, or if you have anything similar that has happened?
I think it would be incredibly powerful in the sense that for us in the community that I work in, it is quite an interesting community in the sense that we've definitely had people approach us in wanting to create a I don't know what the right correct term is, but almost like non-monetary system where people can like sort of just purchase online, you have an e-wallet and then you can buy. So so there's definitely a want and a need for something like an alternative because of the crime rates, because of, if I am bringing in huge amounts of stock, there's high chances I might get hijacked, smash and grabs, and all of these different things. So those things that are there in the community, and I think that it's definitely there's a need and it's ripe, for wanting to plug in something like that eliminates all of those factors that essentially, make your business go down. For example, at Philippi Village, just to backtrack in terms of what we do, is that we it became Philippi Village in around 2015, and the reason for that is because our current CEO, Bashar Azak, was brought in as a community engagement specialist. And the reason was that, it was a beautiful concept, have a safe hub in the middle of a community where entrepreneurs can trade, or small businesses or other organizations can trade in close proximity with their target. But then it wasn't making money. So she then came out to figure out why it wasn't making any money. So at the time, she did focus groups and trying to understand that the trends that we had at the time, what were some of the challenges and so forth. And we didn't have a solid perimeter wall. So we were on 14 hectares of land, and there wasn't a perimeter wall that basically safeguarded valuable assets of the businesses. And we're like, okay, low hanging fruit, let's just put up a wall, and then we put up a wall. The community next door, and we are surrounded by 4 informal settlements. So Siangena, Matikizela, Waterfront, and Sescon, and they are literally on the perimeters of our site. So, and they kept on pushing the wall down. And if you are familiar with township spaces, just a little hole because we used to pass through here. And we're like, okay, we're not going to fight, just going to put it back up. And it was a long journey of trying to understand that a wall can mean different things to different people. And for the community next door called Siangena, the reason they kept on doing that is because they didn't have access to toilets. So they were using our land to relieve themselves. So when that wall went up, it meant that we limited the space for them to do that. We then went on a journey of trying to figure out who are our neighbors. And at the time, it was very paper-based. Okay, household incomes, education levels, how many people live in a house. We asked a very fun question at the end of, if you were to have anything in a space like Philippi Village, what would that be? And so that data we sat on, we used that data to feed into who do we allow to rent out space? Does it feed into the need of the community? But all of those things were very paper-based. It wasn't digitized anyway. And that's the kind of data, that researchers are interested in, or people that are creating new models, or that want to get. So there's definitely room to feed into something that sort of digitizes that data that we're sitting on. We still update that information yearly, but then we just sit on it. We don't know how to summarize it. Yes. How do you properly make sure that it fits into everything? And for now, the model is just that what we get, we use to feed into how we do business differently as an organization. So we managed to sort of operate as a hybrid way. Our space is completely open to the community. Yes, for foot traffic, for the businesses as well, but also then get exposed to things like a pop-up cinema, BMX pump track, farming, running tracks, and so forth. Because when they were responding, they said, we want access to support for moms, support for the elderly, sports and recreation spaces, free Wi-Fi, bringing services that would be essentially found in the CBD closer to home. Yes. And we've been on a journey, in trying to develop our site for that. So I think that by bringing this in, it then just sort of amplifies what already is there. So when I say it's right, there's a need for something like that, where that if you are a HSRC, like, we really want to know more about that. You could tap into an app like that and have the information there ready. If you are someone who would like to invest in an informal business, you could literally go to an application and then find that information there. So I think that there's definitely a gap for that.
Yeah, and I mean, as you were talking, I'm thinking also about what your last point you made is that if there's investment required, someone could use it to go, okay, I want to invest in these businesses, because these businesses are flourishing, for example, or they are producing certain products that are quite popular, and so it creates buying from different sectors. I'm also thinking of the value of it in the sense that you might be able to look at that and maybe, or it's a question, might you be able to look at that kind of information and go, so I'm seeing in this community there are these 5 spaza shops. They are all selling these 5 products, but 3 of them are only selling these 2 products. 2 products are only sold in 3 of them. But they are quite far apart. And so if I'm here and I need that product, I need to travel quite far. And so you are then able to see, okay, these, to go back to those, the two that are not selling the products and go, why are you not selling it? What are the challenges? How can we support you to be able to do those kind of things? And in that way, support the business, but also support the community because you're creating access much closer from that perspective. Have you used the app, or has it been used in that particular way?
So we've used it actually in the reverse sense, where we would get queries or questions from the manufacturers to say, you know what, I have this type of product, I want to launch this type of product here. Would it be a right space for me to launch this?
Right.
And then using those trends, we're able to look at that. And another thing would be, you know, a manufacturer saying, in this area, I've seen, just like you say, my products are selling a lot more here and they're not selling a lot more here. Why is that? And because we've got the relationships with the spaza shops, we can get that information from them. But now the manufacturers or the corporates or whoever else is making business decisions based on data. Like this is just thinking what I'm sucking and thinking, you know, I'll take this product out and go mass market it.
Yes.
And it also works a lot for more smaller type manufacturers, like we've said. So you would know as a small type manufacturer, the budget is tight, you can only produce only this type of product. Where are you going to launch this product? The data that we've got can show you that, okay, go into this area because these people are buying a similar type product, and then launch it from there.
So, I mean, I think just from this conversation, it sounds through AI and technology that there is this huge potential for growth, for community growth, for business growth, for family growth, because if you're feeding to the community and into the business, you're feeding to the family and you're feeding back into the community, and so everything goes. And so yeah, that is really great. I think,
if I can also just add on to what Brian is saying, I think the example that he's sharing with the analysis that he's doing, he's effectively using AI as a sales analyst, a marketing analyst, a data analyst, all in combined. So these are like new departments that are now becoming part of the Vuleka business. And it's him directing it, saying, let's find out what's selling. And that's the whole sales department. That's a job that they. But it's empowering him to give him insights that he didn't have before.
Yes, and I think earlier when you said, AI, you can't remember what you said, we feed it.
Yes,
Right?
you feed it the data.
You feed the data into it, and in that way, you become empowered by the information that you give, in a little bit more swift way. Through working with AI.
Yeah.
And so it's not just that you're trying to think of how AI is coming into the business as a whole, but also how it can support you in thinking through the data and making that available.
It's a step up.
True.
It's giving you opportunities to now compete in those spaces.
Yeah. And I think the one big thing, or the one big barrier that we've seen with AI is the fact that it's fed the data or the information. But the spaces that we are, we actually work in, do not have the information. So if the information is not there and the data is not there, then the AI is not going to know, or it's not going to get that information or that data. And the space or the opportunity that's there is to actually then collect and get all of this data that can then be fed into AI and work together with AI to enhance the outcomes of what it is that you're trying to get out of that information that you feel.
And again, you using or capitalizing on AI for the development of whatever it is that you want to achieve. Speaking back again to the killerism that killerism you said that?
Killerism. Another ism.
to say, you know what, there's this thing that is available that I think you said it earlier, because like we are concerned about this thing that's available, and we worry about what it could do, and that's a distraction to what we could do with it.
Exactly.
Right, and I think the value of what you're doing through the roadshow in different spaces and through this conversation right now is to create awareness around shifting that mind.
Shift the mindset.
Yeah, changing the way that we think about that. So we do have another colleague that we asked to respond to some questions. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, but in keeping with the spirit of technology, we asked her to respond to some questions for us and pre-recorded this. And so we asked her to talk about the GSMA study and the work that she's been doing on the African continent. So let's take a listen to what she responded to us.
Hello, my name is Tanvi Deshpande and I am an Insights Manager with the GSMA Mobile for Development. My role is to generate region-specific research and insights around the impact and the role of emerging technologies in advancing inclusive and sustainable development. We are currently undertaking a research project with the FCDO to understand and identify use cases of AI-led solutions to solve developmental challenges in South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. The objective of the project is to develop an evidence base to understand the role that these AI-led solutions can have on the ground, particularly benefiting populations from the last mile. In terms of how AI relates to the informal sector, what we have found in our research for the project so far is that talent and skills is a key component of developing the AI ecosystem in Africa. And in order to bridge this talent and skills gap, it is essential to build capacity across the spectrum of AI skills. So starting from just understanding what AI is, understanding the kind of data that is used to build AI models and the potential of AI impacting our day-to-day lives, all the way to understanding how to use these AI tools. So existing tools that are already there, and that is something I think Krish is trying to address through the roadshow, is to help students and help entrepreneurs understand how to leverage existing tools. And then the final kind of segment within the skills gap is to help people actually develop AI models from scratch or from existing language models, for instance. So in order to really scale these efforts, it's important to understand that where do you go after building these skills, right? So for the students or for the small businesses, it has to finally result in either a robust jobs pipeline, or it has to result in demand being generated for the solutions that they are developing. And I think the way to do that is really develop collaborative partnerships with academia, with government organizations to institutionalize programs like these to capture their impact and then scale them across the ecosystem and across the regions.
So thanks for that, Tanvi. Krish, I wonder if I could ask you to respond to that and just talk a little bit more about the work that Tanvi is doing with our panelists here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to get Tanvi in on the show, and she could actually talk about some of the work that she's doing on the continent. We're seeing with her project she's engaging here in South Africa, in Kenya, in Nigeria, and so they're collecting these insights and they're doing deep research about how AI is adding value. And we wanted to get a sense of, are we onto something here? Does the message connect? And in my conversations with her, I want to just speak to 2 points that she raised. She spoke about this concept about knowing, using, and doing.
Yeah.
And I think that really gels with the strategy that we're trying to employ with the Skills Development Roadshow. So we're going from this, as we go room to room, institution to institution, we're meeting with people that haven't had this exposure to AI. They've heard the killerism narrative.
Yes.
But we're trying to break that down, overcome those fears. And so we want to go from that point of not knowing to knowing.
Yes.
And so what we're doing in Philippines and other places is to have that conversation, to expose these ideas so we overcome that. But then we want to take it to the next level. And I love the example that you shared where we transition from knowing to doing.
Yes.
And so where the business person needs to do that pitch and they need to put that business together and they've never done it before, but now they feel empowered. And they can run back, punch it into this thing, generate the presentation, do their pitch half an hour later. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
That's the message that we want to drive with this.
Yeah.
And the more they do it, the more they use it, they can then become ambassadors for this. So when we go room to room, I start off by saying, you're not just here to listen to us. You're here to be ambassador. We're trying to show you something, but we want you to go back to your communities and share what you've learned.
Yes.
And
Like
so then
paying
use
it
it
forward.
and take it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next point I want to raise is she spoke about this ecosystem that we need to be building. And so we're just a small team in what we're doing. We're building a small chatbot. We don't have a lot of funds with what we're doing, but we're trying to showcase that these things are possible. And so it's just showing an example. It needs to be scaled out. We need to have AI hubs in Philippines. We need to have that spread across the country, across the continent. And that needs investment. And so we're trying to show that this is important. Philippi Village is showing us where the demand is, what the problems are.
Yeah.
We can develop those tools, but we need policy to follow us and learn from these experiences that we're having, so that we set up the environment in such a way that this becomes a foundation for our small businesses across the country to benefit from.
And I think on that point, when we think of the way forward and building connections, right? Who are the people and the partnerships that need to be created around facilitating AI in the informal sector? What are your thoughts around where do those partnerships lie? Because I think it's AI is something that, for me, I'm thinking of, and we spoke about this earlier. I'm thinking of how do we do this earlier? That we see young people are starting businesses much earlier. You know, I think COVID taught people that you can do things from home. Yeah. Right. So young people are starting much earlier. They've also have access to social media. I say they, I mean we. We as young people have access to social media and all of these different platforms that are very rapidly coming at us. Yeah. And so there's opportunities in that. And so how do we bring this a little bit early in the work that you're doing? And can we, and who do we partner with? I think
well, in terms of partnerships, I mean, today is a great example of how we're connecting the great insights from Gauteng with Western Cape.
Right.
And the business model that we're seeing in Vuleka that's adding value there will add value in Philippines. Right. And so Brian needs those opportunities to connect, to see how we can bring these sorts of platforms here that can start to do that. At the same time, we need innovation hubs like the one in Philippines to spread across the continent in all these communities where people need that space to be able to engage. So we're starting with our roadshow, just bringing people together as we go along. This needs to be expanded. And then in terms of getting them young, I agree with that. I mean, our roadshow so far, we started off with master's graduates in Diani Beach. In Philippines, we met with some young people, but we don't have to leave it at that level, right? It's let's have this conversation in the schools. Let's be driving AI literacy programs at primary school. Let's figure out how we integrate this into the curriculum so that it's not a shock to the system, so that we overcome this killerism narrative. So we don't have this fear that grows with us. And it's not just a fear of AI. I mean, we've got deeper problems in this country. We need to solve the digital inclusion problem. Not everybody has access to laptops and phones. And those that don't have it have fear of it because it's an expensive thing. And my mom has said, if I break this phone, I'm in trouble. Yes. And so, I mean, technophobia is a real thing. And so we've got to try and break those barriers that are there. And starting early is going to be essential.
Go ahead. You look like you wanted to say something.
I think he's covered quite a lot of what I was also thinking in terms of that particular question. And I think that just, there's not, we've, at Philippi Village, we've sort of proven that there's nothing more powerful than co-collaboration, right? Because there are certain things that sort of, aren't as impactful if it's done in isolation, but then when you bring different kinds of partners together. Otherwise, wouldn't be brought together. So yes, by bringing AI into the community, we've and I think I'm speaking from the work that I do, is that there is such a huge gap in terms of lack of information that reaches the people that it's actually made for, whether it be a product, whether it be a service, whether it be a government program that needs to be implemented in a particular community. And what I think technology has sort of again and again proven that it closes, some of these lack of access, lack of information and so forth. And I think that with AI, it's the start of that. It's the start of how do you make sure that you empower the people that you want whatever product or service, to attain. And those are some of the people that need to be brought into the conversation. Yes, we need the investment. Yes, but we also need the drivers. We need the people in the community to drive that this is not something that is killerism, but essentially can be used to leverage and take your idea of something, whether it be a social impact idea or an entrepreneurial type of idea, and take it to the next level.
Yes.
So I think it's like it's like something that levels the playing field in a way, because just like the one big thing that we're hearing is the lack of access to this, the lack of access to that. But if there is somewhere that someone can get access to it without necessarily having to go through the expense of getting the tools for it. This is something that can come in and level that playing field to get everyone on the same level and actually get people to grow from where they are.
Yeah. And I think as you were talking now, I was thinking also about who gets to have access, right? So there's like a really interesting concept here. So we often think of technology AI for the young person, right? We don't think about the person that has the older person. Call it that. So we don't think about the older person. But what I'm hearing when you talk is that it's actually a mixture of people that now have access to something that is rapidly evolving in society. We have to keep up with these things. Right? It's not that we can just sit back and let it go past. Life is evolving all the time, and so I think that's great that different people have access to that. And I just wonder about what you have experienced in terms of gender in the roadshow or the different apps and the businesses that you're working with in your communities as well. How are we looking in that aspect? A lot of my work is about, I'm very interested in women and women's opportunities and so forth. And so, are we seeing that? Is there an equal playing field when you talk about the work that you do in the informal sector? Or do you think that there's more needed to expand this work towards women inclusion?
So if I start off, I think from our side, we're seeing that there's more that needs to be done. But a lot of the businesses that we are working with in the informal sector that are women-led are the most sustainable ones, funnily enough, than, a lot of the ones that would be like male-led. And I think it's also because of the fact that a lot of the times in our communities, the women are the mothers that are supposed to take care of the household, instead of going out there to actually go look for money or go grow this business. And I think that's the one stigma that needs to be changed or pushed against, because I won't lie, they build better businesses, if I'm being honest.
I am not surprised. I don't know why you are surprised. I am not. Are you surprised? No, not at all. For you.
From our side, I mean, in the roadshows that we've done, maybe it's because we've met with an older generation. We haven't really seen any differences between male and female. But if I look at my research and some of my other projects that I've done, there is definitely, when you go to school-going children, there's a very different level of access. So there's male preference. It's the sons that get access to the phone, and the girls are kept away from it. And so there are some stigmas that are there that need to be overcome. So we can empower everybody.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is this notion about women being played upon, the young girls being played upon through phones, and so a little bit more protection of the girls when it comes to technology that we do see socially. But for you in your communities?
I think that I'm fortunate enough to work in a space that tries to change the dominant narrative in the community, where there's a value for women. How do you empower women? And there's an understanding that sometimes our CEO always talks about is that once you empower one female, it's almost a guarantee that you are empowering the entire household, and there's a ripple effect in that sense. And I think that conversations like this definitely bring more. When you talk about leveling the playing field, you're talking about how do you empower women, how do you empower young girls, so that they are also be able to be exposed. And what I've experienced, because I sort of am very for youth development in the community, and I love working with young people and getting to sort of expose them to things that otherwise wouldn't be available in the community. And things like an AI takes it to the next level. Things like an AI, exposes a young girl that you can also be, an entrepreneur. But what does an entrepreneur mean?
Right.
How do you take it further from that, and how do you protect yourself? So in our space, and when I spoke earlier on introducing what we do, is that we've got sort of two types of entrepreneurs: the informal traders, we've got the semi-skilled laborers, we've got individuals that are, call them informal traders on the side of the road, but then they just use our space to store their things. And there is a huge more female than male in our space, especially in the refurbished containers. And one of the reasons for that is because we provide the safety that otherwise, if they were on the side of the road, they wouldn't get. So that sometimes is the reason. But then when you go into the main hub, though it's much more expensive because the managers are different in terms of the container, and there you would find that it's much more male dominated than it would be. So there's definitely that. But I think that pushing such narratives is something that is needed, but also not leaving that boy child behind.
No, of course
because
not. Of course
because the work that we do is that sometimes when you look at the safety element, in our communities, who are the ones that are doing the crime? In our communities, who are the ones that are preying on the girls, like what you are saying, and there are so much more programming that needs to be brought into the community for the male child as well. And in that sense, you are creating now a ripple effect of safer spaces, because the boys only do that because they have nothing else to do, or they have dropped out because of other reasons, and then bringing into programs that otherwise change their mindsets is also something that's needed. That's just me speaking.
Yes. What I'm hearing you say is it's about tailoring what we do with different groups, but also not tailoring it too much where it creates exclusion. Right. Well, I think this has been an amazing conversation, and so thank you so much for joining us today. I wonder if anybody wants to get hold of you. Could you we have 1 minute, but could you just quickly say if anybody wanted to reach out, how could they reach out to you?
Okay, so we have a website, it's vulega.com, vuleka.com. We're available on social platforms, so Vulega app on Twitter or X, and Vulega platform on Facebook, and from there we'll be able to reach out. We've got a WhatsApp number that people can actually chat to using a chatbot or using people as well. But then that's all on the website.
So if you've liked what you've heard today and you'd like to have the AI Skills Development Roadshow come to your institution, please do reach out.
Yes.
For sure, we're coming back to Philippi. But kchetty@hsrc.ac.za.
Great. Thanks. Angie?
Yes. So Philippi Village would be angela@philippivillage.co.za. But then you can also just search Philippi Village. We've got a website, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We're also there and we're reachable. With those that are familiar with the Philippi community, we are right behind the Shoprite Philippi Shopping Center, opposite the Magistrate Court. That's where we are.
So please reach out, to get hold of our colleagues here, and I'm Candice Roosevelt. This has been episode 2 of the HSRC Connect, and we hope that you've spoken back to the killerism concept and encourage you to think about the value of AI in the work that you do.